Hello and welcome to another episode of Panel on Panels, the podcast about all things comics and comics related. I'm your host, John Campbell. Sitting next to me as always, Mike Rigoni.
Yes, hello, John.
And next to him, Donovan Eilert.
Hi, everybody. How's it going?
You always address everybody, and I always address John. I feel like I'm slighting the people who are listening by not addressing them.
Yeah, and then we always leave that little bit, though, for them to...
to say hello back to Donovan.
Sure, yeah.
Just the morning aphorism. Hi, Donovan.
We want this to feel like a conversation.
What's really
not between us, but with the audience.
What's strange is it's not a group of people saying it all at once. It's whenever they listen to the podcast, I get it individually. And so throughout my day, I get, hi, how are you? I'm great. Thanks for asking. Oh, my mom, she's in the hospital again. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that.
So some people you're having long conversations with.
Occasionally.
Yeah.
Donovan, can anyone else hear these conversations, or is it just you?
You know, you sound just like my shrink.
Gregoni, maybe you should try addressing the audience and see if it happens to you.
You are all going to die.
Well, no, that wasn't... Okay.
Is that not what you're
That's a
talking
mistake.
about?
You know what? From now on, don't address the audience anymore,
okay.
because that was a mistake.
I thought we agreed to that before.
Yeah, I should have.
In terms of this podcast.
I forgot about that. It's in his contract. He can't do that. Oh, no. And here it comes. So today we are talking about licensed comics.
Yes, we are talking about comic books that are licensed.
That's accurate.
I'm just going to reiterate everything you say.
These have been licensed. No, we're talking about, you could call them tie-in comics. You could call them...
comic books that are based on other stuff.
Yes, exactly. So the comic book companies,
That is a word.
yes, it is, have spent a certain amount of money to own the rights to the comic book distribution of certain characters.
And depends on the rights. Depending on the rights of those properties, it could be an exorbitant amount of money, or it could have been $5 on a Tuesday.
Or nothing, because some of these are public domain.
Yeah.
That's true. A couple of them that I'm going to talk about.
That's something we do want to talk about. Is I guess those are. I mean, for what we're talking about, they're tie-in comics. They wouldn't technically be licensed comics, though, would they?
No, but I think they definitely. You have these comics that are, like I said, based on stuff.
That's what we're talking. We're sort of using license as a catch-all.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody. I'm trying to cover our bases here because somebody's going to write and be like, "Well, technically, there's no license on that because it's public domain."
That's exactly what they sound like. It's frightening that you can imitate them.
They all have this kind of voice back here. That's what. There's a good percentage of our listeners that sound like that. So we're talking about and within that, there seem to be certain companies that spotlight
more?
that. Yeah, I mean, but that sort of made that like the backbone of their company.
Yeah.
Which we talked a bit about on our indie books episode.
Yes.
Some of these. I mean, Dark Horse really started out as one of these.
One of the comics I'd like to spotlight right off the bat is like some of the Alien vs. Predator stuff. Like how Alien vs. Predator got its start. Like we all know the somewhat awful movies that have come out in the last like 10 years.
Oh, the Alien versus Predator, yeah.
Right.
Because the Alien and Predator movies on their own.
Oh, for the most part, great.
The first half of those Alien movies are awesome.
The first half of those Alien movies.
All the Predator movies I stand
But what kind of started it was in Predator 2 when Danny Glover's on the Predator ship and he's like looking around and there's all these skull trophies and then in the background there's like an alien skull. What the what?
Yeah. And I'm
blowing a ton of nerds' minds.
because they're both 20th Century Fox properties. I'm sure that was just a fun Easter egg that was thrown in and has created a huge amount of mythology, though.
Oh, yeah, tons. And some of my favorite comics growing up were that original Dark Horse Alien vs. Predator run. I have an omnibus of it somewhere.
Yeah, I must admit this. I have never read a single Alien versus Predator comic.
Some of them are really fun. Some of them are really dumb.
I have read other characters versus. I've read Green Lantern versus Aliens.
That one is actually really awesome.
That one is super awesome because that actually makes a ton of sense.
Which Green Lantern?
It was Kyle Rayner.
Yeah.
I love Kyle Rayner.
I
How
know.
have I not read this?
Check it out. It's really awesome. And I think there's Batman versus Predator as well.
There's Batman vs. Aliens.
Okay, then I've read that. I saw Batman.
That's Justice League Origins, right?
Yeah,
No, it's just like Batman discovers an alien hive right outside of Gotham, and he's got to shut it down before they spread into the city. It's pretty awesome.
Cool.
He's just punching aliens in the face.
Yeah.
Is that what stops him?
Yeah.
They just...
I believe he eventually explodes the hive or something.
Oh, sure, yeah.
His no-killing rule only extends to terrestrial life forms
One of my
from
favorite
Earth.
craziest ones is Alien vs. Predator vs. Terminator.
I think you mentioned
I have
this
mentioned
on
this
another-
before, but I don't think I went into the eccentricities of its plot.
Yeah.
Please do.
Oh my god, it's great. So it takes place in, the Alien and Predator stuff, like the whole Ripley thing, happens in the future.
Yeah.
This comic, Alien vs. Predator vs. Terminator, assumes that like Alien 4 happened, so it picks up with Ripley right after
You mean Alien Resurrection?
not right after Resurrection,
Okay.
but a little bit after Resurrection.
Yeah.
They have to track her down to like help defeat the aliens who are kind of invading the planet,
As
and
they
also
always do.
Skynet's happening.
Oh no!
So just bad news.
Oh yeah, no, it's bad news all around.
Yeah, wow.
Oh, that got way worse than I expected.
Wait, how did the Predator get involved?
Oh, they just show up
I love these. I love
Where
this.
does Predator technically live?
in space.
Oh, there's a Predator. Well, no.
There's a Predator planet.
There's a Predator homeworld, but mostly they. Okay, I know way too much about the
Well, I
Predator.
was going to say I was going to bring up predators, but that's them putting them on a planet to
Right.
hunt them. That's not the Predator planet in that movie.
Mostly the Predators hunt around in clans, moving around on their ships. They seed worlds with the alien xenomorphs, and then they use like those seeded worlds as their hunting grounds. Or as in the movie Predators, they just like throw people on a
Yeah.
world and then hunt them. Predators love hunting.
It's like Most Dangerous Game.
Yeah,
But with-
actually.
yeah,
That's
but
kind of
with,
what that
like,
movie is.
Alien super hunters, yeah.
Yeah.
And
It's a cool movie.
Never mind. This is not an Alien or Predator
I could
podcast.
keep going on.
Forget
but-
licensed comics. We're talking about aliens and predators.
Yeah,
today.
we can. We'll save that for another time.
But yeah, that
Aren't the aliens technically called xenomorphs?
xenomorphs is kind of the like catch-all term. Xenomorph is just like a weird alien that we don't have an identification for.
I mean, that's what I've always referred
Yeah.
to them as. I don't know. Okay.
I could probably like in one of the alien novels I have tracked down their like scientific classification for you, but I won't.
Please don't. Please don't. This kind of brings me to. Let's talk about some of the other. So we talked about Dark Horse kind of started here, but today we've got IDW.
Oh, I love IDW.
A lot of their comics are
Godzilla.
And
Licensed.
those are like current and licensed ones, typically.
yeah.
I feel like they're not doing a lot of public domain.
No.
They're doing like Star Trek.
They're doing Star Trek. They've got
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who,
Godzilla.
Godzilla. They've got Transformers. They've got GI Joe. So like the Hasbro stuff. I think they have My Little Pony, which we're not into.
I
that
know they have a
necessarily,
lot
but
of the,
that's hugely popular these days.
I believe they have Adventure Time. I want to say.
Yeah. I think they
And like the Bravest Warrior stuff.
do. That's all them. They have a
They
lot.
have Samurai Jack. They have a lot of actually the Cartoon Network
They have
stuff.
Powerpuff Girls
They
as
have
well.
Powerpuff Girls as well. Yeah.
So how do companies like this require the rights?
Well, it's just a payment thing. I mean,
You just go over to the
You pay for
headquarters.
the license of it. Yeah.
yeah. It's the same way in everything. I mean, a lot of people are, and I'm 90% sure that they just got the James Bond rights. IDW.
Oh dear.
It was either them or Dynamite. I'm pretty sure it's IDW though.
Now we can see
is going to be doing an ongoing James Bond comic.
if James Bond is really a Time Lord, because they also have Doctor Who.
Oh snap!
Right?
you go.
Multiple
Yes,
faces,
yes,
same name, different times.
Exactly.
Who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
What if James Bond was the master this whole time?
Well, I don't know about that. That's a little crazy, isn't it?
What?
Is it John?
I said, wait.
Any more than him being a Time Lord?
Yeah.
Just period.
No, I'm totally willing to buy that.
You're like, but if he's a specific Time Lord?
But if he's the
nuh-uh.
master, that's just insane.
Yeah, it's crazy talk.
I mean, if people
all know the master's a
if
woman
people
right now.
remember
It's true.
with
Spoiler alert.
the this isn't Doctor Who podcast. If you don't watch it, sorry. We expect you to read comics, but Doctor Who also now. But if you remember, who's on Gallifrey but Timothy Dalton?
Yes.
Right at the end of
man.
Tenet Run.
But he wasn't the master.
Okay, I know we're going back a step. I was being silly, John. You took it a
no.
little too seriously.
But no, I like this idea that by
How dare you take our conversation about James Bond possibly being a Time Lord too seriously?
Yeah.
yes, seriously. But think about it. He could be Gallifreyan.
I think there's a very good chance that he is a.
You only live twice? How about 9 times? Right?
We're on 13 now.
Shh. There was a. You remember the end of Smith? Don't worry. But I mean, think about it. Now that they have Doctor Who and they have James Bond, they did a Star Trek Who crossover.
They did do a Star Trek Who crossover.
Why not James Bond, Doctor Who?
They did Transformers and GI Joe.
Yes, they did.
Of course, that's been a thing beforehand.
That came about like in the 80s. I mean, because one of the things that Hasbro has both of those. It's the same thing.
Toys.
It's the same thing with Alien and Predator. I mean, if your companies already own both of these things,
Yeah.
So
when are we going to get that Transformers GI Joe movie though? That's what I want to know.
Didn't it just happen? I could have sworn. I mean, with Marky Mark in there, I was almost certain.
Is that what we watched? I can't remember.
It's all just a big
There were a lot of things.
explosion-y blur.
There were dinosaurs, were there not?
There were, yeah. There were robot dinosaurs in that movie.
Dinobot? No. What are
Yes,
they called?
Dinobots.
Dinobots, yeah. They were in that.
So when a company like this acquires rights, do they then also still have to play by the rules of the properties?
That's an
aligned?
interesting question. You know, I don't really know what the. I mean, I think you can't just completely screw around with stuff.
But I think making these things, there's a certain expectation for, like, if we have the rights to this thing, we know the audience of this thing.
Yes.
So we want to kind of tailor it to that.
Right.
We can, like, screw around and make cool stuff within that setting.
Yeah.
But going, like, okay, we're going to have Doctor Who, and cut to Doctor Who, like, heroin needle in his arm,
right.
vomiting into a toilet.
Right.
Is a little...
Because it's not. I don't think it's a situation where you get the license
Right.
and you're just like, whatever.
But
do whatever you want.
like-
Doctor Who is yours now.
Do you think there's active conversations between companies?
I'm
at
sure
that
there
point?
are. I'm sure there are.
I have no idea.
I wonder who's like liaison at.
I think when you acquire that license, there's probably a contract somewhere. It's like you cannot deface this property in such a way that the parent company isn't like cool with.
But like we've talked before about like Jeff Johns for DC right now. People
Is like their liaison
Like,
to.
he's
Let's go in the opposite direction. Yeah.
he's taking care of everything
yeah.
to make sure that people are doing it.
I'm
but
sure
also
there
plotting
are
that out.
people who are like that. I'm sure it has to go through some kind of approval process. I don't know if there's an individual person who's going like G.I. Joe will be represented this way.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that it has to be approved by Hasbro.
I wonder what kind of
committee.
notes these big companies give to the comic book creators.
I would be interested to hear that. Yeah, I mean, I know like
Clearly, we've not done a ton of research about.
I don't
this
even, but I don't even know
process.
where you would find
Right,
this
I don't
information
know.
necessarily. I did hear an interview with the guy who had been writing the World of Warcraft comics.
which aren't bad.
I can't speak to them. I haven't read them, but he was talking about
I was actually one of the few comics I had like a mail subscription
Oh,
to.
wow, yeah.
Like I got them through issue.
Who put those up?
1 sec, I can tell you.
But I was going to say, I was listening to an interview with him where he talked about when he got that gig, Blizzard brought him in and basically gave him like a 5-hour deconstruction of.
It was a Wildstorm book actually,
okay.
and I had it up through issue 24.
Yeah. So this guy who wrote this, he had to have this huge presentation about the entire world, the characters, the factions, the mythology and history of everything.
Well, John, Azeroth has a deep and rich mythology, and the conflict between the Horde and the Alliance is really something you have to understand if you're going to be writing in this universe.
Can you imagine the
Yeah.
Doctor Who, the Doctor Who writer not
Thanks, John. Not shit all over
Yeah.
my love of it.
It's okay.
Yes. No. What I'm saying but people like you obviously are exactly why they insist on having these kind of rundowns, and I'm sure a lot of things like this you have to be primed to a certain extent to be able to write this. And even the continuity within itself. What of the other comics that have come before this? Because things like IDW has Transformers, and I do read those, and those are very, no matter who's writing it, even when they change the name of the series, everything carries over. It has its own continuity within Transformers comics. And if you violate that, people are going to notice and be upset about it.
the Doctor Who person gets sat down. They're like, "All right, you don't know anything about
I
Doctor
think
Who.
the rules for Doctor Who are a little looser.
Here's 50 years."
Well, you posited the theory that they all get a TARDIS.
Anyone who writes Doctor Who gets a TARDIS.
I mean,
So they've got the time.
they do. They literally have the time and the space in which to do that.
It's true.
Well,
But they don't-
relative space.
But here's the thing: is at some point they don't live. Thank you, Garoni. That was I can't let that go. That was beautiful and perfect. And yes, we're all in agreement that it's relative space.
Yes.
But think
So many people were shouting that at their
Well,
computers.
technically
or
relative
iPhones.
dimensions in space,
Oh,
but
boy.
yes, that was
Time and relative dimensions in space.
yeah. What's
that
it
was-
spell?
I don't know.
Yeah, some kind of acronym. I don't know. Moving
Something.
It was implied, but like you also don't live like 1,000 years. You know, you're not actually from Gallifrey if you have a
Right.
TARDIS. Unfortunately, I've tried to work it all out, but it doesn't quite compute. So you only still have you have to write this comic in the next month, and you're like, oh shoot, and then they come back next month and you're 40 years older, and they're like, Tom, wow, right? Maybe you should be off this comic because it's really putting some gray hairs on you. It's like, yeah, I've had 6 children since we last spoke.
Yeah.
on. In ancient Rome.
Yes, exactly.
So talking about IDW, I think what you were saying, Donovan, a little bit before was that they seem to be very up with like current things.
Yeah.
It's not. They're not so much capturing. I mean, they do have things like the Transformer, but even that has become current again, obviously with the movies and stuff. They're not writing nostalgia fest though. These are popular things at the moment. I mean,
though less so with things like Samurai Jack and Powerpuff Girls. There's definitely a resurgence factor to those because you have people who grew up watching those cartoons, like coming into disposable income and being put in positions where they can write those sorts of comic books.
Right.
And there's guys like us who want to see that sort of thing.
Definitely. So I mean, but I think but what I was going to steer this over to a company like Dynamite, which we of course had Morgan Hickman, who works for Dynamite,
Yes, indeed.
on the show. But they have specifically gone after classic comic book characters and heroes from pulp and radio. And
Those are very much in the public domain. A lot of them.
Some of them are, quite a few of them. But I mean, they have things like Green Hornet and the Shadow and
Which I got to figure, the Shadow and like Zorro and stuff, are those public domain at this point? No, really?
No.
Huh.
No, but Dracula is, though.
Dracula is.
Well, of course.
Everybody can use.
Everyone uses Dracula, and everyone should use Dracula.
Everybody.
Use more Dracula, people.
Are you a comic book writer listening to this? Have you used Dracula?
Why not?
You should.
You look at a character like Zorro, and Zorro hasn't actually been around as long as one might think. I mean, like I think a lot of people think of Zorro as sort of like a Robin Hood.
Yeah.
He was created specifically in like 1912 by a guy named Johnston McCulley.
Okay.
Wouldn't 1912 be public domain by now? It's 100 years, isn't it?
Well,
or
no.
is it different for...
No, well, no. But, I mean,
it depends entirely on that person's.
Oh,
like,
that's right.
what I'm saying is,
estate.
what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
he's not like a mythic character. He is a character who's created by a guy who owned the rights to that character, sold the rights here, there, bam, and so he's still controlled by these companies. So
because you look at something that was created like at about the same time, which is like any of the Tarzan stuff by Edgar S. Burroughs, or the John Carter of Mars stuff, or H.P. Lovecraft's like Cthulhu Mythos stuff. That's all public domain, but that's because like their estates are kind of like don't really exist after a certain point.
In this case, McCulley, I happen to have read a book about the history of Zorro several years ago.
Cool.
So I can't do this for all these characters. McCulley sold the rights to Zorro at a certain point to a guy who has controlled that, and now his son is the CEO of like Zorro Productions. So it's just continued to be passed down.
I gotcha.
So I mean that character very much is a licensed character. I don't know about the Shadow.
That seems like
I love the Shadow.
However, nobody else is using these things.
Sure, no.
So obviously, Dynamite has some kind of, because I don't see Kevin Smith just put out Batman meets the Green Hornet over at DC. But I was looking at that, and it's DC in association with Dynamite. They're both credited as publishers on that.
Interesting.
So in order to use the Green Hornet, you had to get some kind of permission from Dynamite. Obviously,
How old is the Green Hornet?
Oh, I mean, Green Hornet comes, I think, from radio. So that probably, 20s maybe?
I don't know.
I
ask you. You know more about the Green Hornet than I do.
I'm 20s, 30s, probably somewhere in there. He's generally set in the 30s, so I'm going to put him. I'm going to put him somewhere in the 1930s.
I feel like the Shadow's even earlier than that, though.
I think he is. Yeah. I mean, the Shadow is like a defining radio character.
Right.
Have you guys listened or seen the Batman Shadow crossover stuff?
No.
It's great.
The Batman Shadow crossover
Yeah.
stuff? I don't know if I've seen. No, I've never seen.
It's really great. I was just quickly trying to Google to see when it came out, but it's awesome.
I know.
It makes sense. I mean, with those two characters.
Yeah, and I mean, I know Dynamite is trying to establish like a world, a shared universe, because like
everything needs to have a shared universe.
Sure, but I'm saying like Green Hornet and Shadow are teaming up to fight crime together, and that makes sense.
Sure.
That they have those things, and
like a Pulpoverse.
And now we have Django meets Zorro.
Yeah, sure.
Because
why not?
I know, but I mean that is an interesting thing.
I believe that was actually one of my favorite taglines of a licensed comic is Army of Darkness meets Xena, and the tagline is just like, "'Cause why not?"
And I think those are. I'm pretty sure those are Dynamite books.
The Evil Dead stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, probably. I don't know.
There it is.
Sure.
I'm looking right now at the cover of Batman meets the
Batman
Shadow.
asks, "Who knows what evil lurks in the heart of men? Only the Shadow knows."
Well, I mean, I'd suspect Batman knows as well.
What?
Well, he's going to know.
That's got to go way back. I'm looking at a 20-cent sticker on that and stuff. There, like,
I'm not saying it was a current
no,
run, John.
But in trying
Do you
to
have a
figure
publication date for that?
in trying to
I'm
figure out
working
when
on
that is, there's definitely is from the past, like from
It's from the past.
far in the past, though. Is what I'm going to say.
Right.
I mean, if a 20-cent comic, when was the last time they were 20 cents?
Depends on what swap meets you go to, I guess.
Well, sure. I mean, I can probably get some comics for 20 cents, but
Sure.
I don't think that means they cost that necessarily. So Dynamite has sort of, I think a lot of their stuff does play on this nostalgia factor. They have Flash Gordon as well, which Blacker and Acker are writing right now.
I got to read that.
We, of course, I don't think we've mentioned them, but we fully
Huge
enjoy
fans of
the work
Thrilling
of,
Adventure
of
Hour.
Ben Acker and
Yeah.
Ben Blacker.
The Bens.
The Bens, Blacker and Acker, I think that's what it's called. They're writing that now, but no, I think that's it's interesting because they are playing on nostalgia for things that are very old. So I mean, in a lot of ways, they're also just introducing a new generation to these classic heroes.
That was November 1973.
Oh wow, okay,
So very recent.
yeah.
I mean, in
Can I
like,
tell you
regard
what-
to how old the Shadow is, yeah.
Can I tell you where I read said Batman Shadow?
Was it Uncle Paul?
It was in the spare bedroom at Uncle Paul's house.
There you go.
Of course.
Yes.
Further teasing Uncle Paul until he will be on the show.
I mean, we could bring him on for the Batman Shadow crossover episode.
When we devote an entire episode to that specific...
No, we devote half the episode to Shadow and half the episode to Batman, and about 5 minutes in between where we fight each other live on the podcast.
Yeah. So I mean, so we've talked about IDW, we've talked about Dynamite, we talked about Dark Horse still does have some license because they have the Alien Predator.
I mean,
stuff,
they still
but
have the Alien Predator
but
stuff.
I would say
think
that
they still have Terminator.
I think Dynamite might have Terminator now.
Well, at any rate, Dark Horse has all of the Joss Whedon stuff.
Yes, they do.
Buffy, Angel, all
Buffy's
the
so
Serenity
good.
stuff.
This was going to lead me.
We have to talk about.
This was going to lead me into my another point, which is licensed books. I feel like a fairly recent thing about them is they have allowed creators to continue their stories from other mediums,
Definitely.
in comic book form, and nobody's taken more of an advantage of this than Joss Whedon.
Though the one that people wanted him to continue the most, it hasn't been until recently.
Right. Which we're talking about Serenity or
Yes.
Firefly, depending on your
The
license.
license is Serenity.
The license is Serenity, which is so bizarre. to
the
me.
fact that the show and the movie are two separate licenses, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't need to keep bringing this up. Do you know who wrote the Batman Shadow crossover?
Who did write that?
Dennis O'Neil.
Denny O'Neil.
He has been working in comics for over 40 years. That just blows my mind.
yeah. The guy's a legend.
That
One of the
just
all-time greats of comics.
Blows my mind. He created the Black Canary character. Mm-hmm. That was him.
Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Oh, he's one of the great. He wrote.
Danny, do you want to come on the show? If you do, please write us.
I mean, he wrote one of the greatest DC comics of all time, which is Hard Traveling Heroes.
that's right.
You just love your hard traveling hero.
I
both
love the
do.
Hard Traveling Heroes. It's one of my favorite comics ever.
How about this? When you read all of Hard Traveling Heroes, Gorgoni,
Oh, God, get right on that.
We will pick up Ghost in the Shell.
How many issues is Hard Traveling Heroes?
I don't know off the top of my head. 20-something probably.
Done.
Okay.
You good.
heard
Then,
it.
then we can finally do that Hard Traveling Heroes episode I've been wanting
Yes.
to do.
And I can finally say that you guys have read a manga.
Yeah.
Yeah, we both win. Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. But no, so getting back to
Yes, I'm
getting back to the
okay.
point about the idea of continuing stories in comic book form has become popular, and I mean, like
definitely.
it feels like a no-brainer now, but I feel like that it hasn't really. I mean, the first time I really remember that happening was Buffy season 8.
I feel
I mean,
like
in
it
a-
must have been done before that.
But I mean, people have continued stories. I mean,
Sure.
hell, the Marvel Star Wars comics continued the story of Star Wars.
Yes.
But I mean, regardless of what they're thought of now, but they did take.
But all
place
the
after
Dark
the
Horse Star Wars comics definitely did, if you count the expanded universe stuff, which is of course all for naught at this point. But
Oh, it's not all for now. Oh, boy. You enjoyed those stories.
no,
That's
no,
all
no.
that
I
matters.
still enjoy those stories, but the fact that they're just like I don't know. I'm this is a whole other conversation.
That's gonna.
But
Well,
think about-
that conversation is gonna come up a little bit.
Think about like
But let-
all the television shows like He-Man and Transformers that had comic books,
But
because they couldn't sell toys on television, so they
Right.
sold them through comics.
Right.
So, I mean, something like that is continued.
Oh, absolutely. That's continuing stories. But I guess what I'm saying is this very like formal way of it's Buffy season 8. This is,
I mean, on the front cover it says Joss Whedon is the executive producer of these things. Even
Right,
if he's
exactly.
not writing every issue. He's the
Right.
one overseeing
and then
everything.
I mean, so then Buffy. Then that leads into things like Angel After the Fall, which
love
is
Angel After the Fall.
basically Angel season 6, even though it's not called that. It essentially is. And
You
then,
never read Angel After the Fall, Donovan?
No.
Oh man,
I'm looking at the glee in your face, though, and I want to read it.
I have all of
It's-
it upstairs.
it's
I'll
fantastic.
give it to you on your way out.
It's fantastic. Yeah, so that continues that, and then now there had been Serenity comics
Yes,
that all sort of took place in between the show and
the big damn gap.
yeah, as is referred to, and then for those uninitiated, that's the time between the end of the series and the beginning of the movie. But now
There was also one that filled in the backstory of like Shepherd Book and stuff.
Shepherd's Tale, yeah. So that was all playing in the past, though. Now, for the first time, we've had comics continuing the story of Serenity.
Leaves on the Wind.
Yeah, Leaves on the Wind.
Oh man, is it good?
It's very good. Yeah, no question about it.
I
But
just picked up the nice hardback edition of it.
Me too. I haven't read it, but I picked it up.
You're in for a treat.
I'm so excited.
it's fantastic. But it's so interesting that we now live in this world where it's just like all these shows. Because it used to be your show got your favorite show got canceled, and you're just like, oh, well, that sucks. But now they found a way to continue these shows in some format. I mean, it's not the same, of course, but it's something. I'm reading new Serenity stories.
Yeah, I know. And the fact that you have a lot of the same creators coming back to do these things, it lends a voice to these comic books that you're just like, if you are fans of the show and you have these characters' voices in your head, you're going to read these panels and just be like, I can hear all of these actors saying these lines.
I mean, it's now actually coming back as a show, but we have X-Files season 10 is a comic.
You think the show coming back will account for that at all?
I don't know. Chris Carter is involved in that comic, so it's not like it's
Sure,
it's not
yeah.
maybe. I don't know. Probably not.
I haven't read the X-Files comic, so I don't know
It's pretty good. I don't.
how impactful it is to the canon.
I mean, quite a bit actually. There's some stuff that I don't want to spoil anything
Sure.
for anybody, but there's definitely some stuff that alters the canon of that show.
Was it Aliens, John?
No, not that. But I mean, certain
It was.
the fates of certain characters and stuff from the show
Sure.
are dealt with in the comic. But I mean, you have that Farscape is continued in
Yeah.
a number of comics. You mentioned Xena.
I don't know if that was a continuation of the show or not. I honestly have no idea.
I don't either, but I'm just saying,
You
like,
guys haven't watched all of Xena?
No, I've watched all of Xena. I just don't know whether or not the comics were continuing.
Okay.
I like that. Have it be known that I have watched all of Xena.
It's on Netflix, John. What else am I going to do with a Saturday night?
Many things that
Are
are
you
not
kidding me?
like
You're right.
Xena.
I could be watching Hercules.
Bum, 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 bum. So good.
I just wanted to see how long he was going to
Like
take it for.
half. I can do the whole intro, but I will say that probably 25% of all of my time awake, I have that song stuck in my head. I'll be like sweeping the floor, and I'm like, bum, 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 bum. What is that song? Oh, that's right.
Anytime you have any sort of like disc object and you twirl it around your finger, you're just like, oh, it's back.
Yeah, I can't do the cry. I've been working on it for years now. I'm gonna get it down.
Okay.
I'm working on my Lucy Lawless impression.
Yeah.
I think that's really the niche that I could.
I think
get
that's
into,
that's going to get you.
You know,
far.
I can see it in like the cheek, like in the bone
We have the
structure.
same hips.
No, I know you do.
The same.
I've said this many times. Like you've got lawless hips.
Yeah, that's right. They are lawless. Nobody can shut those down.
That's the title of his autobiography, "The Man with Lawless Hips."
Yeah. So
Just Donovan in a Xena costume on the cover.
Wow, it does not leave much to the imagination.
no, it shouldn't. It shouldn't.
So I mean, yeah, they were getting to continue these things, and like you said, with the creators of the original properties at the helm of a lot of these for quite a bit of the time, is incredible.
If not like writing every word, then at least like overseeing the project.
Which is a lot of what Whedon does
Yeah.
now, obviously, because he's busy doing something else, I think.
Some movie, the like Returners or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
don't
the
know.
Returners.
Yeah.
That's it.
No, that's right. Coming
Ready?
to theaters 2018.
The Returner.
Returners.
Joss Whedon's The Returners.
But what's so interesting is like I would say
He's working on the Ripper movie, right?
a good. Oh, that'd be so
I wish.
awesome.
Ugh.
Man, I want to see more Summer Glau. we've like a part of these. What?
Because she would be in that?
Yeah.
The Ripper movie?
Do you know what
I'm sorry.
talking
I
about?
saw the River movie.
No.
I was talking River Tam. I'm so sorry.
Oh, no. We were
I was
talking about
But yes,
Giles.
Summer Glau should be in everything.
She could be in the Ripper movie. I don't know.
Sure, yeah, why not?
I mean,
Wow. I just got really excited for a
We're talking-
River movie that's not going to happen now, I guess.
we were talking, about a movie based around the character
Ripper.
of Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
That sounds that's amazing, I would say.
I believe one of my favorite XKCD comics was actually like, you know what movie I want to see this summer? That movie where River Tam just kicks everybody.
Yeah.
It's literally just called River Tam Kicks Everybody.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
I'm on board.
I'm so on
You
board.
just sold a ticket.
What about a Giles River team up?
Whoa.
What if River whoa. What if River was a vampire slayer and Giles was the
Now,
Watcher?
there is a solid fan theory that's like, okay, clearly in the future the Watchers have crumbled, but there still needs to be a chosen one. The Slayer must rise again, and it is going like the new vampires of space are Reavers, and there's a whole fan theory involved in this.
I love this idea.
Well, welcome to the world of the internet where everything is connected.
Yes.
Well, and so
All stories add up together.
here,
And all of them are completely disavowed by a small child looking into a snow globe.
Yes, if you choose to look into that. St. Elsewhere destroyed television.
here's what I was going to say though is I feel like there's a small portion of them that feel like an exact continuation of what it is, and it feels good because you're like letting this out. A majority of these stories though just feel like what ifs.
Yeah.
Which I feel like there's really good fan fiction and web comics and things like that also capture that.
Yeah.
It's always this really weird thing to grapple with of like, well, this guy online wrote a way better story than the people who actually own the rights to this right now.
This is going to
Like-
bring me to my next point, which is the reconciliation of canon between the original properties and these licensed.
Heavy sigh.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
Et tu, Mandalorians? Et tu.
this is not the first time you've brought up the Mandalorians on here. Look,
That's the only way to describe it, John. That's how we talk about reconciling canon.
I mean, canon. Of
Let's
course.
start off. Star Wars is one of the biggest licenses you can have.
Oh yeah.
And-
in not just in comics, but
right,
in everything.
In everything. And for the longest time, Dark Horse was producing shit tons of Star Wars comics.
So
Not
many.
only based on the expanded universe novels, there's some great graphic adaptations of those novels, like the Thrawn trilogy.
You can get it. There's a
and,
beautiful hardcover of the Thrawn trilogy.
yeah.
You can get.
but they've also been producing a lot of like awesome original stories, like the Star Wars Legacy stuff, and
I believe Dark Empire is
Dark Empire was kind of a whole multimedia thing.
No,
but
that's Shadows of the Empire.
that was Shadows of the Empire, right? Dark Empire
Great
was
video game.
Yeah, it was a video game. It was a book. It was a comic.
Great video game.
It had its own score, soundtrack, for you to play while reading the
Sure,
book.
yeah, why
I
not?
love the idea of a book with a score.
What's really cool about a
If
lot
it-
of the Star Wars audiobooks actually is they are scored and have sound effects.
Yes, that is cool.
I like
That's
that.
different than me being like, oh, chapter 14.
Right.
Shrek
I like the idea
12.
of like ending the soundtrack ends before, and that's when you realize you're a slow reader. You're just like, oh, I'm never gonna make it.
There's just a little footnote about play track 7.
But yeah, the Star Wars stuff has more recently gone back because it was originally Marvel who was making Star Wars comics.
Yes, in fact, Marvel had a debate about like, do we take the license here? Is it worth taking the license for this weird sci-fi movie that they're shooting in Tunisia right now? Like, if you read the Marvel history book, they were really like, I guess we'll take it because the movie was in production at
Sure.
the time, and nobody thought
Giant
anything
blue
of it.
rabbit, that seemed, or was it green?
What the?
The big rabbit character in the Star Wars.
I think it's green.
Is green?
I think it is. Yeah.
Okay.
It's been a long time since I've looked at those. But yeah, so and I think a lot of that did come from they didn't know what the hell this thing was anyway. But yeah, so they had it. Marvel had, which I think some people might be surprised to hear. That it did.
The ones they produced are, they're okay.
They're kind of those are fun what ifs.
Yeah. But then Dark Horse got their hands on it.
Yes.
And they produced crap tons of Star Wars.
So
Like,
much Star Wars.
and
An impossible amount of Star Wars.
Some of it's good, some of it's bad, and a lot of it's just like, okay, take this as it is.
Yes, I would say that.
You know, there's a lot of content when you have like 40 omnibuses.
Oh, 40? I think that's like a generous underestimation.
I mean, because the thing is, within the Star Wars license, there's how many different titles, you know? I mean,
Oh,
I mean
tons.
that Dark
Tons and
Horse
tons and
created.
tons
I
and
mean,
tons and
you know, yeah. It would be impossible to sift through all of it, really.
Because here's you've got the long running titles like the Legacy stuff or the like New Jedi Order stuff,
Yeah.
and then you've got the one offs like Boba Fett versus the Empire was like 5 issues of a really cool thing where Boba Fett got on the wrong side of Vader, and then they were butting heads with each other.
Yeah.
And then it turned out like, you're not so bad, Vader. You're not so bad either, Fett. And they kind of part ways as like begrudging, like maybe one day I'll call you to hunt down a guy.
It's a buddy cop story. It's Lethal Weapon in Star Wars.
How awesome would that be?
That'd be really awesome.
We're writing it right now.
Yeah, shut this down. We're going to start writing scripts for that.
And every
we're back.
time a new Star Wars movie would come out, there would be new additions to this expanded universe.
Oh, yeah.
Like if once the Clone Wars was more thoroughly introduced, you got a whole subsection of Clone Wars comics. Once like the stuff from Revenge of the Sith came out, like Order 66, like okay, what Jedi survived Order 66?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of more comics.
But I mean, it had its own canon.
Oh yeah,
and
it was all like succinct and existed like the canon was the canon. Like there were some like weird Infinity stuff, which is actually really fun to read.
Infinities literally is a what if. That comic is very much what if this happened.
If you've
what
never
if
read
that
Star Wars Infinities, I highly recommend checking that out. There is an omnibus of like the 3 what if. Because let's see, in Return of the Jet, or no, it's New Hope
is what if Luke missed.
What if Luke missed the exhaust port on the Death Star? In Empire Strikes Back is what if Luke died on Hoth?
Right.
And in Return of the Jedi, I'm completely blanking on him.
I don't even remember either.
I believe it's like what if Leia was trained in the Sith by Vader when he captures her?
Oh, is that right?
Something like that. Or at least that is the thing that happens in that book.
I just like at the end of the Infinities Empire that Han Solo just shoots Vader. Just shoots him dead.
Right.
It's over. That's awesome.
That's a very Han move.
Yeah.
Han shot first.
Well,
Han also shot last.
Yes, exactly. The Alpha and the Omega shot. Both
well, there is
Han.
that great scene in Empire that's always one of my favorite scenes when they in Cloud City when they open the door
Like,
and
without
Vader's
even
standing,
waiting, just
and
like,
Han just opens, draws his pistol and gets like 5 or 6 shots off. He just and Vader just puts up his hand, but it is just like Han Solo's reaction, like Vader, kill.
If more people had that reaction, the whole thing could have been settled a lot
But yeah, now
quicker.
as of the whole new like Episode 8 thing, we're in a weird situation. Well, not even a weird situation.
Episode 7.
Episode 7, sorry. Well,
Eight,
8 is also
eight
coming.
will affect it as well. I think.
But how like all that fan canon we've had over the years, essentially fan canon.
Yes.
at this
Fanon.
point.
Yes.
Well, there's like levels to the Star Wars canon. There's like the movies and the Clone Wars and Rebels are like the official canon. And then we have like some of the video games and most of the comics and most of the books.
Yeah.
And then we have the rest of the video games and some of the comics and some of the books, and like they're levels to the canon.
These
of
are the
Star Wars.
moments where you see the light in people's eyes go out.
No,
Yeah,
this
yeah,
is more times than I care to remember, Donovan, because I don't know if you've all heard me speaking with such fervor about Star Wars. This
Never.
is kind of my nerd topic, is Star Wars.
Yeah. But I mean, so yeah, they've scratched all that.
Yes. They've labeled it the Star Wars Legends properties.
Now, this is not. I mean, this is not really what this episode is about. But I do feel like I should talk to you a little bit about this, since it is a subject you have a lot of opinions about.
I'm passionate, John.
Do you think? I mean, I understand you could be upset about that, but do you see that they had any choice?
No, I get it. It's like you're handcuffing the creative like abilities of these people making these new movies if you're saying like, oh yeah, you have to account for 25 years worth of shit people made up.
When they first announced these movies, people go, okay, well, it's going to be the Thrawn trilogy. It's
Right.
going to be this. Like, no, it can't be. I mean, like for me, as somebody who saw some stuff, did this, did that. For me, it's almost like whew, okay, now I can just start fresh. And there's going to be some new books that are set in this.
Right.
Marvel's doing these comics that are canon.
And I will say
and
this,
it's just like, oh, okay, because I've
I've
always
read
found
a couple
it
of
daunting.
the new books. I have read a few of the new comics. I really like the Vader one that's going on, and the one that's set between Empire and Jedi.
That's
is
just
really
called
good.
Star Wars, I think,
Yeah.
the Jason Aaron stuff.
Those are really good, and yeah, there is a sense of just like, okay, if I start from here, I don't have this massive backlog to.
That's how it feels
approach.
for me. I mean, I don't know.
Like when I was a kid, I was just devouring Star Wars. I didn't care.
Yeah. I don't know how into the expanded universe did you get, Donovan?
Not super into it.
I mean, like I read stuff here and there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a smattering of things, but It is an interesting concept of like, okay, you've taken on this movie, and they took on the movie before they canceled or labeled
I think they
it
probably
Legend.
knew going into that.
But can you imagine if they wanted to tell a new story? You could do it. You would just have to like make sure you're dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
Right, and that's just, you would have to bend over backwards in a way that would just
No,
like,
But
get that.
here's the other thing, though, is in my mind, Star Wars has a conglomeration of people who would more than love to quit their job and consult with you on the idea of like, no, he would never do that because
I believe I'm
technically-
one of them.
Exactly, and so it's not like it would be impossible.
No, but this gets into this debate about, and I heard Joss Whedon talk about this one time, which is just like fans don't know what's good for them. Like to a certain extent, like just because that's what you want to see doesn't mean that's what you should see.
I believe Patton Oswalt's like fan rant on Parks and Recreation was one of the greatest examples of this.
Right.
Of just like just because we can mash everything together into one super awesome like battle royale style thing doesn't mean we should.
Right, exactly. That's
That's
the
how I
thing.
do
Where it's just like
everything,
you have to do what's right for the story. You can't go, oh, but fans would love to see that, and of course they would. They would love to see a lot of stuff.
Do I want to see Boba Fett punching his way out of the Sarlacc pit? Yes. Is it going to happen? I don't know. Let's hope so.
Let's hope so.
Let's not hope so.
What?
Death should be permanent, folks.
Yeah, but he
Never
didn't
died.
die. It
Punched
takes
his way out of the Sarlacc pit.
Nah.
John, you're slowly digested over thousands of years.
He's got time.
No.
He's got
No,
nothing but time.
Create new cool characters. This is turning into a different debate on here, but this
They
is
did the announcement of Rogue One. Is that the
yeah.
female like X-wing pilot?
We don't really know what it is,
Lots
but I mean,
of great comics. The Rogue Squadron comics.
yeah, I know. I mean, we don't really. I mean, we know that there's one of the main characters is a female. I don't know what we know nothing about that.
do-
Wedge Antilles' daughter.
I also do love that Star Wars.
Never should have brought up Star Wars.
I know.
We can't not in licensed
Star
comics,
Wars
but
is
at
a
the same
fan
time.
base of people that's like, see that guy wearing that yellow jumpsuit in the background? What's right? Like four.
So
Yeah.
in episode 1, when they're on Tatooine, there is a guy with some dreadlocks and like a yellow stripe across his face.
Okay.
That man's name is Quinlan Voss.
I
He
actually know who Quinlan
He
Voss
is a Jedi, and he has many stories involving him. I have the omnibus of his comics.
That's right.
Why
You showed me that the
why
other
isn't
day.
he involved?
He's got stuff going. He's
got his own
He's
stuff.
got his own thing going
I mean,
on.
this is the thing. This is where
Same thing happened to Nick Fury when he got to Tatooine.
Oh God, not that theory again.
It's a perfect theory.
No, it makes no.
He's trying to get an army of Jawas together.
Oh,
He's
good.
got strategy.
The Avengers of Jawas.
Yes, that's the movie I want to see. Call Mr. Abrams, not JJ. He's too busy.
We'll call his,
his
dad.
father, Mr. Abrams.
Mr. Abrams. Hey, could you tell JJ he's got to sort out his priorities?
Jawas.
Tell your
That's what
son
the
to get
kids
on
want.
this Jawa-based film. Hey, who knows? We might see that someday. Well, this conversation,
Star Wars : Utini.
this conversation though is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about with canon.
Yes,
Which
no,
is-
I know.
How
Whoa, it's like you
serious?
used
How
our-
serious should we? Moving away from Star Wars here, how serious should we take these things as canon? And I mean, is it a case by case basis?
I
Well,
think it's a
it-
case by
yeah.
case basis, and I think especially when the creators of the thing aren't involved, take everything with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I mean, I think something.
Unless you have the guy who created the property saying, "This is the continuation of my story," like Joss Whedon.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, certainly. But I mean, I look at something like we've talked a bit about this in the past, the IDW Star Trek ongoing that's going on right now. I mean, that's very much seen as canon, and I think we also talked about this in the indie book
Because
episode.
also nothing like disregards it.
Right. Well, but Star Trek is so much easier than Star Wars in a lot of ways,
true.
simply because who's to say the Enterprise didn't go to that planet and talk about? I mean, unless you like start killing characters or something. Star Trek is so
And
episodic.
not have them brought back by some kind of weird god cloud.
Yeah,
thing.
Star Trek is so inherently episodic and mission based that you could create tons and tons of stories that could be considered canon.
Sure, like where they go to a planet and meet the X-Men.
Sure, why not? I mean, maybe not that.
That happened?
No,
There's
oh
a
no,
book.
that
There's
happened.
a book.
That happened. You don't know about this? It's called Star Trek: Next Generation Planet X.
So they meet the X-Men.
They meet the X-Men.
They're on Earth.
No.
No, they're on a planet.
Why have they not?
that-
What?
It's a planet that like consists primarily of mutants.
It presupposes that the X-Men exist on this planet that's mostly mutants.
Okay.
So and the Enterprise shows up there.
But it's not like not our X-Men.
No, it's our X-Men, but reimagined as space X-Men.
Yes. Donovan's
Not-
look of disbelief is so priceless.
Not space X-Men, but that's a different thing.
That would be the Inhumans.
Yeah. I was referencing the actual company SpaceX, but
Oh, sure.
whatever. Don't talk about real stuff on this show.
What? Why would we?
We were John. It's Star Wars. That's the real stuff.
Quinlan Voss.
But yeah. So I mean, I think we can say that canon has its pros and cons.
It's a case-by-case thing.
For sure.
Especially in prose.
Yes.
And cons in Star Trek's case.
So
Yes. High five, Donovan. Thank you.
Did that Mike pick up that high five?
yeah, I think
It was a good one, ladies and
It
gentlemen.
was pretty solid.
So this leads me though to moving past canon into. Do you think there's a certain kind of license that lends itself to a comic book, or do you think just anything's up for grabs? Because I mean, I can get into some
I
stuff
think
here.
comics and graphic novels and just like visual storytelling in general lends itself to any kind of story you want to tell.
Yeah,
really.
because I mean, I was going to talk about like right now, the Chuck Palahniuk is writing Fight Club 2 as a comic book.
Sure, yeah, why not?
I mean, that's an interesting thing. It was a book, then it was a movie, now it's a comic book that continues the story. Miami Vice has a comic book. Airwolf has a comic book.
Yes, Airwolf, the one we've all been clamoring for.
Well, they're finally continuing Airwolf.
finally.
As they should. Airwolf was the coolest show. You know all about Star Wars. I'm going to talk about Airwolf.
Sure.
No.
It's
All right,
it's
you've-
Knight Rider in the sky, but
You've earned your 10
Which
minutes.
is you just proved my point for me. There it is. Airwolf, yeah, Knight Rider to the sky is the perfect pitch.
is
for
that
show.
not like the perfect elevator pitch for Airwolf?
That's exactly. I'm sure that's what it was pitched as. Take Knight Rider, and what if Kit was a helicopter? Then he's way better. Is the answer. No, but I'm just saying, like it does seem like we're getting into this territory now of like, with the popularity of other stuff. Sons of Anarchy is a comic book now.
What I love about the whole like comic books though is what it removes is the budget.
Oh, that was the other point I was going to make, which is the exciting thing about like with the continuations of these things is you can see these characters, with just the limit is your imagination and I guess what you could actually draw.
What's interesting is the bleed back from certain things. Like, so you see the Marvel movies being made now, and you see how popular those are. They're pretty popular, guys.
I think so.
Have you seen them yet, audience?
You might have seen one or two.
Do you know they're making Marvel movies?
Oh man,
I just heard about this
there's
the
a
other
couple
day.
of them, and they're pretty.
They've made a few.
They're neato.
Yeah. They're not bad.
But
They're
see,
not
how,
bad.
but with the popularity of those, how that bleeds back into the comic books, in terms of like, well, now we have a Black Nick Fury, which and
No, that came from the comics.
that
though.
came from the Ultimate stuff, but
Yes.
now there's the whole
Yes, but I'm saying
616.
like I don't know. That's not. I don't.
Sure, but Coulson specifically.
Coulson
is
would
what
be
I
the-
want to get to.
Yes.
Is like we have an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. comic book now that is the only way it's really tied to that TV show is because of like, okay, we're going to take the characters that were introduced in the TV show, bring them into 616, the like straight up Marvel universe, and now we can have adventures with them in here with zero budget. And it's just like, do we want to have Coulson grabbing Valkyrie and Swordsman so he can fight some kind of demon possessed Heimdall? Sure, let's go for it in the first issue.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's the first issue of that comic.
Right. I mean, that's an interesting thing, the way we're seeing that now, where that's affecting the comics. Something else I want to talk about was what DC's doing some interesting stuff now, where they are doing.
I feel like that's happening with DC as well. Like
Well-
how the shows specifically.
I mean, Diggle and Felicity are now characters in the Green Arrow comic.
And don't they have a comic Arrow? Just straight up Arrow?
Well, they do. They do have. I mean, they do have
Are there
tie-in.
tie-in comics for the shows?
There's Arrow and Flash comics,
Oh.
based on the shows.
Interesting.
Just
Didn't
like
know
there
that.
was a Smallville comic, and there's still a Smallville comic that's actually continuing the TV show Smallville in comic book form.
How many seasons would it be if it was still continuing it, do you think?
Smallville?
Yeah.
I think they're into season 12 now.
Oh, they're moving a little slower than I expected. Because that show had, what, 9 seasons?
10.
10 seasons? Mm-hmm. And that ended a few years ago. Mm-hmm.
Well, it took a while. They didn't immediately start.
Okay, I was going to say that's very impressive.
They didn't know. But what I was going to say is that DC has been doing interesting things like that, where because they have these TV shows, something Donovan, you and I share a love for, which is Batman 66.
Absolutely.
Which is a DC comic based on the TV show from the
Adam West Batman.
Yeah, the Adam West
I
Batman
love
TV
that
show.
comic so much.
Oh, it's a great comic.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Right, exactly. But it's that.
I have that tattooed on my lower back.
in a comic book form. I mean, that's what the Batman.
That's your tramp stamp.
Hey, it's not quite a tramp stamp. I said lower back.
Okay.
Not.
All right.
Yes.
No. Okay.
Some days you just can't
No,
get
I'm
rid
just
of a
saying,
bomb.
By the
some
way,
days you
sorry,
can't get rid of
super
a bomb.
classy.
It's pretty funny above the butt.
It's close. Okay, it's my tramp stamp. I didn't want to say it. You made me say it, but I'm not ashamed anymore.
Not anymore.
I've had a chance
You
to
used
have
to
a
be, not
laser.
now.
Yeah, not originally. And then when I woke up, I was a little bit. And then I looked at the laser surgery and I thought, you know what? It's not worth it. Let your true colors fly.
But yeah, I mean, so this idea now
Above your butt.
that like the comics are transferring.
Sorry, John.
Yeah, this idea that comics are transferring to another medium, then coming back to comics.
Yeah.
Is interesting.
It's a weird like cross.
Because in addition, I don't know if you know about this, they this is Batman 66. They've now started Wonder Woman 77, which is continuing
cool.
the Linda
Linda
Carter
Carter?
Interesting.
Wonder Woman TV
Yes.
show. And I just read that Marvel will be producing X-Men 92, which will be
I did read
continuing
this.
the universe of the animated series X-Men
I
heard
in a comic book
I heard
form.
it was only a few issues for the Secret Wars.
It's going to be a miniseries, yeah.
I want that
For
to
the
be
huge
a
universe explosion.
I could-
I want that to be a
It could-
completely ongoing.
It could easily turn into that.
forever.
There's no reason
Slash,
it
bring
couldn't.
that television show back. Please bring that show back.
Why not bring the television show
They
back?
have
But I mean, there's
tried bringing the X-Men back to cartoons.
I mean, they've
Oh
done-
my gosh, it was so good.
DC's always done stuff like that because they had an ongoing Batman the Animated Series comic.
And they still have like the Batman Beyond
Instead of the
comics.
Batman Beyond,
Though
that's now.
I'm not kind of sure what's happening with that right now.
Oh no,
stuff.
it's happening.
Sure, but like the whole like cataclysm, whatever, what are they calling their whole like universe? explosion? Convergence.
I
that's it.
actually don't know if that's affecting the animated universe comics. I just don't. I mean,
Yeah.
they've seen.
Because New 52 didn't really.
No, it didn't at all.
See, so I don't think it's gonna
I think
be-
they're in their own thing. Just like
Okay.
it's not affecting Batman 66. It's not affecting. I mean, I think those are. This is what I'm saying. Those are, even though those are characters from those companies, they're treated more like licensed books.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So I think that those are unconnected. Although there's the weird thing with Batman Beyond, Terry McGinnis being in Future's End, that
Right.
crossover.
That was actually specifically what I was talking about, was that weird Future's End book, because I know that just wrapped up.
Yeah, but that had no. If you read the ongoing Batman Beyond, that didn't really have any effect on that. So I think that's just its own thing.
Okay.
There is the animated universe Terry McGinnis, and then now there's a Terry McGinnis in the just proper comic universe. I think those are separate things. Still.
But in the comics, like Nick Fury looks like Samuel L. Jackson.
yes.
Jackman, Hugh Jackman, and Samuel L. Jackson. If they had a baby,
Whoa.
and then Tony Stark definitely is a Robert Downey Jr. character, and they're becoming
he's
these,
being written more like Downey.
Yeah.
which is great because if they keep that in the next 40 years, Downey's still going to look like that. Clearly,
What's interesting is the character we haven't seen any bleed back on is Wolverine. I don't feel like.
he's still small and scrappy.
Yeah,
Right.
no, not really.
Yeah.
Because I think he was already so iconic.
Sure, but it's just one of those characters, like, we've seen him played by the same guy for the last, 15 years now. And I'm really shocked we haven't seen more, Hugh Jackman-esqueness come back into
You
Wolverine.
know who was the original pick for that, by the way?
Bob Hoskins.
Hugo Weaving
Oh,
Wolverine?
for Wolverine.
no.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. John, yes.
When was this?
No, period.
Before the first X-Men movie.
Before, I took it all the way back to the 80s when fan speculation was Bob Hoskins. But
Wait, fan speculation or somebody they actually asked? Because they actually asked Weaving,
Did
and
they
he
ask-
couldn't
Well, 'cause
because
they-
of the Matrix.
because somebody was cast before Hugh Jackman.
It might have been Hugo Weaving.
It was not Hugo Weaving. It was a Scott.
Is it Jay Moore?
Yeah, it was Jay Moore. By the way, Google Mike Gargoni and Jay Moore. See if you can track down a video of our own Mike Gargoni palling around with Jay Moore.
Moore
Please
making a horribly stereotypical, I would say very prejudiced joke. and Gorgoni giving him nothing. No response live in front of what, a couple thousand people?
A couple tens of thousands of people, yeah.
very prejudiced might be a little bit far.
His last name is Gorgoni. It's Italian. We get it. He asks him if he knows his friend Guido.
What you don't see in that video is that there was a guy who'd gone up before me who said his name was Guido.
Oh my gosh. Trying to be relevant, trying to be callback.
Here's prime material to cut out.
But please, if you find it, let us know.
No. The guy who was cast originally was an Australian actor named Dougray Scott, who was injured because he was playing the villain in Mission Impossible 2 and got injured in a fight scene and couldn't be Wolverine.
So
That's
they
how
got
we got
some young unknown actor named Hugh Jackman.
Exactly. I think we were talking about licensed comics on the show.
No.
I think this one got away from us
a little bit, yeah.
You guys have any final thoughts about?
I mean, there's a couple that I feel like I failed to mention that, like,
let's
there are
do
some
that.
great licensed comics out there
Well,
that I feel like need to be represented a little
I know
bit.
that, Gorgoni, that you have a deep fondness for, like, John Carter, Princess of Mars. Have you read any of those comics?
Yeah, quite a few of them.
How do those
That's
hold up?
Marvel, isn't it? Who has that stuff?
Yeah. A lot of it is just straight up adaptations of
Okay.
the original novels.
How many novels are there? Do you know?
Oh God, 13.
Okay.
And then there's some short story stuff. But yeah, that's all pretty good. And before that, there was some adaptations, specifically by what studio was it?
And Gorgoni's looking, and he's still looking.
Self-Made Hero Publishing does some stuff where they adapt a lot of like older, like open
Public domain?
Public domain stuff. I'm sorry, I blanked on that. I own quite a few of their. I'm holding right now. Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath, which is a one of Lovecraft's, like, basically wrote one novel. He wrote a shitload of short stories, but he wrote like a novel, and that's that. And these guys do a lot of adaptations of like novels and stuff like that. The art style is all done by this guy named what is it? INJ Culbard. Culbard, I think is how do I say the last name. But he does some great stuff. His version of because he adapts these novels as well as illustrates them. His version of At the Mountains of Madness is really, really good.
I think I've seen that.
Yeah, I own it, so you probably.
Yeah.
But he's also done versions of John Carter of Mars as well.
Cool.
But yeah, the Marvel stuff for that is I like it. But again, I have a fondness for that particular property.
Well, obviously,
I was a fan of the movie.
Yeah. The movies.
Haven't seen it yet. I'll watch it.
It suffered from poor advertising.
Yeah, and
its marketing was flawed.
and it wasn't the most interesting movie. But
on, John, moving on.
But I was going to say though, I mean that fondness that you're talking about. I mean that's obviously the spark that inspires all this stuff.
Oh,
it's
definitely.
Like this. Here you go, fans. I mean, if anything, the comics are really for the fans. It's not like let's try to introduce new people to this through the comics.
We're not going to be trying to make a boatload of money off of Cthulhu comics.
Right. I mean, you are going to make that, but it's going to be people who already love Cthulhu and Lovecraft and stuff like that. So what are some of the ones you want to mention that you said that you kind of didn't get around to?
The continuation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Have you not read these?
No.
Oh, man.
I read so many things. Yeah, I feel so stupid each week when you guys are like, have you not read this? You haven't read this?
And we always say
Donovan,
it with that tone.
John, I'm not
read
shocked
this.
you've not read this because you hate that show.
I don't hate that show. That's
A broad generalization.
You shut down-
You won't give that show a chance.
You shut down our Star Wars discussion.
Yeah. But the creators of the show, Brian Konietzko, I always don't know how to say his last name, but the other one is Michael Dante DiMartino. I know how to say that. But those are the two guys that created Avatar: The Last Airbender. And they are kind of like executive producing, overseeing the creation of these comics that continue that show. There was a sequel series as well, but these comics take place kind of in between the two shows.
Are there any Korra comics?
Not yet.
Okay, well,
Probably soon.
time and the internet will tell.
Yeah. But
As we
the
always
guy
say.
who writes those comics is called Gene Lewin Yang, and the guy who draws all of them so far is named Guri Hiru, just one word, like Madonna.
Whoa.
just like Madonna or Cher.
Or Cher, yes.
Beyonce.
Any other 80s pop singer?
Sure. But those
Beyonce.
those comics in particular, the Last Airbender continuation comics, are really good. They tie up some of the loose ends from the show that
There are a few.
like what happened to Zuko's mom.
Yep.
There's a whole section of the comic that deals with that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I know.
That's-
it's good.
I'm not going to say that hasn't kept me up at night. Occasionally. Thinking, plotting. I have a map in my bedroom.
I mean, that was the big one I
was the
wanted
big
to
one?
mention. I mean, we got around to Buffy, Serenity. I mean, I've already mentioned my love of the Cthulhu stuff.
What are
Boom's-
Dresden Files?
That was actually another one I was going to mention was the Dresden Files novels, which are some of my favorite urban fantasy novels, are slowly but surely being adapted into comic books as well. I believe they're through the second book now. The problem is, not problem, because it's a great thing, is in between each like novel that they do, they then do a series of just like, and here's a short story that could take place between these novels that is also written by the author of the books.
Huh.
So there's actually quite a bit of Dresden comics right now.
Oh,
Cool.
There's a bit of an older one is Discworld has made some like good comic book adaptations of those novels. Terry Pratchett, R.I.P. He made one of my favorite fantasy comedy series, which is the Discworld. I think he did for fantasy what Douglas Adams did for sci-fi. Douglas Adams, of course, being the author of Hitchhiker's Guide. And so those novels are endlessly entertaining, and the comic books I feel are can be just as entertaining. There was actually a whole like what is it called? Like I want to say a graphic novel. It's like an illustrated novel. So like you have like a prose novel, but then you also have splash pages of like lots of art. That was called The Last Hero. That was actually really, really good. And Paul Kidby, I believe, was the artist in that. He's done a lot of the cover work for the Discworld novels more recently.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we didn't touch on too much, but the idea of books like prose.
There's so many
novels being turned into comics. Because I mean, I'm a big fan of Darwin Cook has been adapting Richard Stark's Parker novels, which are a great series of crime novels that people should check out. There's like 20 of them. But Darwin Cook has been writing and drawing these adaptations of each one, and if you know Darwin Cook's art, it's awesome. He did Justice League New Frontier. Very old timey classic. He's done some work with the Spirit. So if you like his stuff, it's very cool. Very old fashioned kind of comic book art. But yeah, those are great as well. But yeah, I mean, this idea of continuing prose novels in
Well, not just continuing prose novels,
or adapting
the prose novels.
Because I mean, Marvel has for a long time been doing their classics. They've been doing classic books. They did their Marvel Jane Austen comics.
Marvel does great adaptations of the Stephen King's The Gunslinger series.
Yes,
The Dark Tower.
Yeah. The Marvel adaptation of The Stand. Have you read that?
Yeah, that's really
fantastic.
good.
That's very good. So I mean,
there's also comic book adaptations of stuff like Game of Thrones. I know the novels have been adapted,
which is very cool. I've read some of the Game of Thrones.
Robert
comics.
Jordan's Wheel of Time series is currently being adapted into.
I've seen that around
comics. Those books are a trial at times, but I'm hoping the comics can even some of that out.
But yeah, I mean, that's an interesting thing that can also be under this license as well. Yeah,
something we didn't really talk about on this, and I think this will definitely be another episode. But it appears, and I'm absolutely no expert, as I've shown time and time again on this podcast, but in Japan, anime and manga seem to have this like synchronous relationship
It
where
can be that at times, yeah.
where you watch a show and then there's like 4 volumes that you can read to catch up on things or to supplement the show or vice versa.
Generally, how it happens is you'll have a manga that gets popular and then that'll get turned into a show.
But they're doing it in a way that the same company or the same people are in charge of it. Are they not? Because again, I'm no expert.
Good ones sometimes.
Okay.
Everything else, not really.
So it's a reverse then. It'd be like Batman getting turned into a movie.
I was gonna say, I mean, is that really that different from how it works here?
I feel like there's a large conglomeration of that. Though.
I mean, Dragon Ball Z is a perfect example of this. What is it? Akira Toriyama, the guy who created Dragon Ball Z, was used for a lot of the original art, and he was consulted on the show Dragon Ball Z. when the show the show was crazy popular. So they wanted to keep that gravy train rolling, even though the comics had stopped. And they were like, okay, we're going to make a new series, Dragon Ball GT. And Akira Toriyama was like, really, guys? Because, I stopped writing the thing. And they're like, no, we got to keep this gravy train rolling. And if you've ever watched GT, holy crap, is it bad.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like over in Japan, they're a lot quicker to go to animation to adapt this than we would probably more go to the live action.
Oh, no, definitely.
But that's what I'm saying. But I think it's roughly the same kind of process.
But quickly is the operative word there, because it's interesting. A lot of times you'll have animes start that are based on a really popular comic at the time that will very quickly catch up with the comic book and then kind of have to tread water and create what's called filler episodes to
I love the use of the word filler.
Create the space.
You mean
so
what
the comic can
filler?
keep going.
You mean what Game of Thrones is
Exactly
about to
what
have
Game
to
of
do?
Thrones is going to have to do. Yeah.
No.
Though they're going to spoil the books is what's going to happen.
They're just going to plow forward.
Yes.
Forget filler episodes. I really want to see some filler episodes of Game of Thrones.
Just flashbacks, John. Flashbacks.
Flashbacks on top of flashbacks on top of flashbacks.
To be fair, I believe that was a great fan rumor for a little while. It was if they caught up, they flash back to that first war with Robert Baratheon against the
Battle of Trident.
yeah, all that stuff. That would be actually pretty cool.
Not it would be.
Think
but
about how many
not at the expense
Targaryens
of
there have been.
stopping forward
Sure.
momentum of story to take a whole season.
John,
of that.
there's so many Targaryens. Come on.
I'm not saying that you couldn't function. Oh God, this episode is all over the place.
Well, you pick a topic like licensed comic books.
I guess it lends itself to this. These are all licenses.
they are all over the place, John.
Yes,
you have
it's true.
licenses from every genre, every point in time.
Because something I want to talk about that I love is
Have anyone read a graphic novel of Gilgamesh? I feel
No.
like that needs to be a thing.
I
I
think
think
it
I've
exists.
seen that, but I have not read it.
Neither have I.
But
Oldest licensed comic.
but I mean, yeah, there is really it seems like you can read almost anything. Like I love Dynamite is doing The Man with No Name, continuing after Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with the Clint
Does
Eastwood
that
character.
need to happen?
Why not?
But it's happening, so I
mean,
guess it doesn't matter.
I don't know.
yeah.
Those like those movies, you just follow him to
Sure,
the next
sure,
thing he's
yeah.
doing.
Next town's got another new set of problems.
Sure, exactly.
Needs Clint Eastwood to shoot some people.
Yep, a whole lot of people too. So yeah, I think that's going to kind of wrap things up for our discussion about licensed our very all over the map discussion of licensed comics.
Yeah.
As I like this, we can
Have
make,
fun making a comic out of this conversation.
Yeah, pretty soon, panel on panels.
The
By
comic.
Way, yeah, by the way, we are open to pitches for license.
If people want to draw a comic of us, and please send it in to us.
Yeah,
We'll read it.
Panelonpanels@gmail.com.
Yeah. If you need ideas, tweet at us. Our Twitter is at Panel on Panels.
Uh-huh.
Or use our Facebook page to gather a whole bunch of information about us, which we are Panel on Panels on Facebook.
Yeah.
There's a fan page.
Whoa.
Can you like it? Do you have time to like it?
Come on,
You do?
Come on, you've got a Facebook.
I asked about your mother earlier.
Yeah.
To be fair, I might have balanced
No
that out with
obligation.
telling them they were
I
all going
know.
to die.
There goes the ratings.
There
so
you go. Falling off.
I'm just a realist. I don't know what to tell you.
So we turn now, as we do at the end of every show, to our recommendation segment where we tell you the comics. Okay. Where we tell you the comics we think you should be reading this week. Donovan, you want to start?
Sure. I have one slightly obscure. I think, John, you might have read this, but only at the behest of me. Is The Ballad of Halo Jones.
Yes.
You
You did have me read this.
It is by Alan Moore.
Crazy Hobbit hole dwelling Alan Moore?
Well,
What about his birds, John? What about
Or-
his birds?
They're there too. They're in the Hobbit hole with
or
him.
Living in Morgan Hickman Alan Moore. I believe
That's right. That's right.
he might pull a Mission Impossible on us.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was originally published as like a little comic strip. Alan Moore, Ian Gibson is the person who's drawing it, and it's like this crazy.
I think it was part of 2000 AD, was it not?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can get a collected one. That's what I have, and it's essentially like it's filling out the 2000 AD world, but I love this concept. It's in the future. It's like a literature class who have found like diary logs of this woman named Halo Jones, and they're like studying her life as her diary entries would be text for a literature class. And so you get these little snapshots. It's over like 10 years of her life, I think. And she like enlists in the army and she works on a cruise ship and like all these crazy things happen. It moves at quite a clip because they're only a few pages long, each of them.
Right.
All black and white, beautifully drawn.
Oh, yeah.
Crazy if you like futuristic sci-fi that just like really gets in there and goes for it. It's really fun. I don't know if it's for everybody, but it's super
fun,
and it's something that I think maybe not Alan Moore's crazy out there stuff, but it's definitely not like Watchmen or V for Vendetta. So
no, it's good. It was really good. I enjoyed it.
Something that is really fun. It's kind of a little soap opera-y.
Very cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Gargani, what do you got?
We mentioned this a little earlier. Both of my recommendations are licensed comics.
Got to get on this train.
Oh, you're tying in. Oh.
Yeah. See, I'm pulling a U this time.
Oh.
Glad I beat you to the punch. So we talked about
We'll see if I did that as well.
I talked about this specific comic a little bit, both of these actually, but my first one is the adaptation of Stormfront, which is the first Dresden Files novel. It's adapted for the comic by Mark Powers, and it's illustrated by Adrian Siaf. I think I'm saying that right. Siaf? How would you say that?
Yeah, I'd say Sia.
Siaf?
Syaf.
But
Siaf,
anyway, as you would say, because everything becomes Italian.
It's a really good
Siaf.
adaptation of the book itself. The TV show also adapted the first book. Less good. The TV show is fine. Don't get me
TV
wrong.
show's good though.
But this comic is a more faithful adaptation of the book. The trades
It might be
specifically
a
are
little
actually
hard to do some of the
It
Dresden
is.
Files stuff on a television
it
budget.
is. The whole heart explosion thing is a little difficult.
Yeah. Censors might have a problem with that.
Maybe, but
Little problem.
Stormfront specifically is broken up into 2 volumes. Most of the books so far have both Stormfront and the second one, Full Moon. But the art in this one's pretty gorgeous. It really captures kind of the whole noir wizard kind of feel. You still get that sense of just like, ooh, crazy magic. But the book always kind of lent it as being more of a subtle, like, there's not going to be a fireworks show every time someone's doing a spell, but it's still kooky stuff going on. Like frog demons are going to show up and try to burn your house down.
As they do.
As they do. So yeah, Dresden Files. Great stuff.
Cool. Was that it?
Oh, I got a second one if you want me to just keep on rolling.
Yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, the other one I also mentioned earlier was Serenity Leaves in the Wind. This one is written actually by Zach Whedon, who is brother of Joss.
I believe it's based on some of Joss's notes.
Oh yeah,
though,
and like it says in the front of the book, executive producer Joss Whedon.
Right.
Like he was definitely overseeing this. But it's illustrated by oh god, I never know how to say this person's name. Georges Genety.
Sure.
But they also do all of the art.
Once again, we do nothing. But
I know,
butcher
but
people's
they
names
did
on here.
they did the art for this, and they also did all of the art for like Buffy season 8 and 9 and 10, I believe.
Yeah.
So if you're familiar with that art style, it's that same art style. So it's like slightly more exaggerated and animated, but it definitely captures the essence of all these characters really well.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
yeah, those are my recommendations.
Very cool. So I have 2 recommendations. They are both licensed comics.
Called it.
And they're both IDW books, actually. The first is
Godzilla Half Century War.
No.
Oh.
I can't believe you didn't mention that actually on here.
I was going to say, Godzilla
I believe
did
I've
not
already
go-
recommended
Yeah,
it
it's true.
once
It's true,
before,
it's true.
so I'm trying not to.
The first is Ghostbusters, the ongoing Ghostbusters from IDW. Ghostbusters is one of my favorite movies. I don't know really what more needs to be said. It's by
It's
Eric,
Ghostbusters.
Eric Burnham and Dan Schoening does the art. It's great. It is very Ghostbusters. Like it continues the story of the Ghostbusters.
I think I've read the first couple of issues of this.
Yeah, it's super fun. Like it feels like the Ghostbusters. He's got the character voices down. It's fun. They are actually crossing that over with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right now. So the
Oh my gosh.
So like 5-year-old me just exploded because that was it for me as a kid. It was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters. Yeah, that was it, man. I would have gone nuts for that comic.
The Ecto one goes over a manhole, and then that pops up, and the turtles are there.
Pretty
Oh,
much,
man.
yeah. I've not read any of that, but I'm excited to read that because I think that's going to be a lot of fun. But no, that's awesome. And then the speaking of crazy crossovers, I couldn't not recommend Star Trek: The Next Generation meets Doctor Who.
Yeah.
In a storyline called Assimilation Squared.
Oh snap!
Which is, for those who haven't read it, is about a Cybermen and the Borg coming together to become one.
I hate that idea so much.
Massive threat.
Because it's so terrifying.
And
Yeah.
the TARDIS
Absolutely.
materializes on board the Starship Enterprise D,
Sure.
captained by Jean-Luc Picard.
Of course.
And it's specifically the
Him and
11th.
Geordi have some stuff to talk about.
It is the 11th Doctor with Rory and Amy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's awesome. It's so cool. Like, it's just it's nerd heaven, pretty much. I mean, like, it's just. Oh man, it's there's even a flashback to, this is not the first time the Doctor has had interactions with Starfleet. There is a flashback sequence to Tom Baker meeting Kirk and Spock, which includes Kirk kicking Cybermen in the face, which is awesome. But no, it's written by Scott and David Tipton. It's drawn by J.K. Woodward, and the art is really cool. It's like painted and super detailed, so it
J.K.
looks
Woodward,
like the.
I'm sure I've read something.
Probably, he has a very distinctive art style. Like I said, it's painted and it's highly detailed. So they're real renderings of the actors, so they look exactly like they do in reality. Cool. But yeah, just to see the characters of Star Trek meet the characters of Doctor Who, finally. Yeah.
We've all been clamoring for.
It makes sense in a lot of ways. Like, there's not. It's one of those things where you hear it and you're like, "That's crazy," and then you're like, "Well, wait a minute, no, I could see that."
If Q is a thing,
Yeah.
then nothing discounts the
I
Doctor.
would love to see Q and the Doctor do something. That does not happen here. Once again, terrifying
can hope.
merging of Cybermen and Borg.
That's so terrifying.
It is
to
a
me.
really terrifying concept, and it's a really awesome.
Just when I got my sleep back, knowing that I'll figure out what happened to Zuko's mother, I'm going to lose it again.
at the prospect of Cybermen Borg coming together. Because what's great is they both think they're assimilating the other one.
Oh, of course.
Because that's the way it works. So those are our recommendations for this week.
Unless Donovan, did you have another one?
I had the one.
Just the one? It's okay.
Yeah.
No,
I didn't realize it was a competition. So
It's not, but John and I definitely won.
Oh, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's true. Mine was by somebody who may be a Welsh wizard. So
Maybe.
who is a Welsh wizard?
yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like the third image of him on Google image search is like him standing in some kind of wind tunnel with his hair blown back, looking like he's being affected by some sort of necromancy.
Yep. Which he was.
That he's performing?
I believe so.
Sure. Yeah. Necromancy will really put some wind through your hair.
You know it. Ugh. I
It'll be
still
my
haven't gotten
tagline
my
in
hair.
necromancy for any D&D campaign. Necromancy, it'll put wind through your hair.
Yeah. Woo. Blow back on that one.
So I think that's going to do it for another week on Panel on Panels. Once again, please rate and review us on iTunes.
That would be lovely.
5 stars, please. If you're going to leave a 1-star review, just don't. Just don't.
Leave it to our
I
Gmail.
would rather you ignore us than send hate our way.
Yeah, there's just no reason for that. There's no reason for it. And, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to spend, if we get one, we haven't yet, I'm going to really spend a lot of time trying to track that person down. And then show up at their door and just be like, why? Why?
It's like, I'm going to track them down, show up at the door, and then have a really emotional breakdown about why
I'm
they
a
hate
nice
us.
person. Maybe if you got to know me, I'm going to move in for the next week. And then maybe you can change that review.
That'd be a great sitcom.
So if there's like a lull in these episodes, no, that's what I'm doing.
It's just Gorgoni and I. We're still recording.
Where's John? Oh, we found that one guy.
Yeah.
We're living together now.
Yeah. He writes us letters.
Yeah, I'm sending letters. So yeah, please, if you were so inclined, we would very much appreciate that. But for Panel on Panels this week, I'm John Campbell.
I am currently Mike Gorgoni.
And I will always be Donovan Eilert.
Keep reading comics, everyone, and remember, #Archie is our stalwart.
Archie is our stalwart.
Archie is our star.